Evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this most spectacular event in human history. Today we'll see an awesome display of man and machine working together against the elements in a series of the most amazing races imaginable. Yes, it is indeed time for the awe-inspiring and thrilling action of race days. First up is the championship race of the Dirty Racing Formula 1 series, and it seems like the race is just about to begin, so let's head over there right now. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen, but we seem to be experiencing some weird technical difficulties. This is clearly not the exciting and thrilling race we were supposed to be showing you. What? It is? Well, I don't care. This is crap. We need more excitement, so put something else on. When does this four-wheel drive race start? It's starting right now? Well, why don't you put that on then, you stupid sack of shit? I apologize for that little hiccup there, viewers, but rest assured it will not happen again. We may not be able to bring you the Formula 1 race you were expecting, but thankfully the 4-Wheel Drive Championship is already underway, so let's check in on the action right now. Okay, what fresh hell is this mess supposed to be? You don't seriously expect me to comment on this crap, do you? Well, screw you, I'm not doing it. Fire me, sue me, I don't care. I'm not taking any part in this whatsoever. Find some other schmuck to be your stooge, you talentless fuck. Hello and all that. I'm apparently supposed to... Hang on a second, why are we doing this in black and white? Couldn't we put some color in here, maybe? And how about we get rid of these things? There, that's better. Anyway, let's just get this bitch started, shall we? Let's fire up our engines and roar right into the total failure that is race days. What do you mean, what am I doing? I'm trying to get this review started. What? What? But it's a video game, it's not an actual race. I don't care what the other guy was doing, I'm doing a review. And if you have a problem with that, you can shove it up your... So yeah, if you didn't catch it, this game is called Race Days, and is essentially two racing games in one. The first one, called Dirty Racing, or Dirty Racin' as the game itself apparently wants to be called, is a top-down racer with Formula 1 type cars and was previously only released in Japan. The other game, called 4-Wheel Drive, is a port of the previously US exclusive Jeep Jamboree Off-Road Adventure. Why they changed the name of the game for this release I don't know, but it certainly doesn't make it any better. Now, before we go any further, let me just reassure you that your monitor isn't broken. These games are in black and white. Why? Because they're original Game Boy games, that's why. Handheld games just didn't have color back then, so if you need your games to look like a rainbow, you need to search elsewhere. Even though several of the most popular games nowadays still only use about 2 colors anyway. This is far, far from being the game's biggest problems though. In fact, you probably noticed a fair amount of the main issues from the few clips I've shown you already, but just in case you missed it, I guess we should go over at least some of them. Let's start with Dirty Racin', as that's, if anything, the slightly better game on offer here. The first thing you'll notice when starting it up is that the music is actually pretty awesome. Yeah, that's not too bad, is it? However, it does go a bit weird eventually, and it's also the only track in the entire game. Again, it's pretty good, but it still would have been nice with some variety. In any case, after the music has finished giving you false hope for the game and you actually start playing, you'll find that it actually tries to go for sort of an adventure-style setup. What I mean is that instead of just having a choice of circuits or a championship mode where you race through them all in a set order, you actually have an overworld map with levels to choose from. These levels aren't always in any set order either. Sure, you usually have to complete certain races in order to pass through to another section, but pretty much from the start you get to choose between at least a few levels, giving you some freedom in terms of progression. Huh. That's actually a bit of an interesting idea. Seriously, I haven't seen too many games do this sort of meld of racing and adventure. Well, maybe a few that were released much later, but still, this must have been a bit of a first, so good on them for trying something new and different. Too bad it doesn't make the actual game any better though. Yeah, this whole overworld thing may be a neat idea, but it improves the game about as much as a dollop of ice cream improves being shot in the head. Fair enough, there is some potential in this game, I guess, but it's not exactly all that much. Honestly, just look at this. Just look at it and tell me you can't pretty much immediately spot a few problems. Yeah, the visuals are decent enough, but nothing else seems to have been made with any sort of reasonable thought behind it. First of all, look at the track. Now look at the cars. See a problem here? There's barely enough room for one, let alone two or more cars side by side on these things, so that kinda makes overtaking a bit of a pain, doesn't it? Sure, you can get past the competition, but it usually feels like pure luck or like it happened by complete accident. Also, by making the track so narrow, they kind of force you to crash into the walls every couple of seconds, and isn't that just a pile of laughs? Fair enough, this could be somewhat avoidable if the controls weren't also a bucket of shit and jizz. Okay, fine. I'll admit that you can sort of get used to the controls eventually, but they're still pretty awkward. You see, instead of a normal control scheme where pressing left turns you left and right turns you right in relation to where you are facing, this game opts for a more turntable type of scheme where pressing left turns you anti-clockwise and right turns you clockwise. It's kind of hard to explain, but if you've played stuff like the older Micro Machine games or RC Pro AM, this control style should be fairly familiar to you. Like I said, you do sort of get used to it eventually, but I think most of us would have preferred a more traditional approach. In any case, adding to this spunked fest are the power-ups. Yes, you can get power-ups in this game, some of which seem almost essential to winning certain races, but how exactly do you get them? By doing the most obvious thing imaginable, crashing into the blinking walls. Oh yeah, that makes total sense. That's clearly the only way to go about it. I mean, here I was thinking that driving into the walls was usually a bad thing since it damages your car, slows you down, makes you lose and all, but now I realize I was just being a fucking idiot. Of course you'd put the power-ups in the walls. That's way better than just having them in the road or something. I mean, what sort of idiots would do that sort of thing? As if the sheer stupidity of this wasn't bad enough though, these power-ups are all over the place in terms of usefulness. Some don't really affect the race at all, like the one that just gives you a few extra points, whereas others are ridiculously overpowered, like the supersonic lightning bolt thing that gives you extra speed and makes you invulnerable for the rest of the race. I am so not kidding! To be fair though, the supersonic thing actually makes you go so much faster that you'll most likely just end up crashing into every single wall, so it's not like it always helps out all that much anyway. There is actually something else you can collect besides the power-ups, and this time you don't even have to crash into the damn walls or anything. You see, scattered throughout the courses are these little black sea boxes that actually represent money. This money can be used between races to upgrade your car and or to repair any and all damages you most likely suffered during the races. This is fairly standard stuff, but it's a nice addition, I guess. The only problem I have with it is that you never seem to get enough money in the races to actually upgrade your car in any meaningful way, at least not if you also want to fix its damages. I also can't say that I ever noticed any effect of the upgrades I did get, so although this is a nice feature to have, it does feel relatively useless. As bad as all of that is though, I could probably overlook at least most of it if the races themselves weren't so unbelievably tedious and if the audio during them didn't make my eardrums fall out. Honestly, this is just appalling. Not only do most of the races just end up feeling like the same boring and remarkably slow disasters over and over again, but the lack of any music and the incredibly droning and downright horrendous sound effects just makes the entire thing unbearable. Seriously, just listen to this crap. Yeah, your ears are bleeding too now, aren't they? What the hell were they thinking here? I know the Game Boy didn't exactly have the most advanced audio capabilities or anything, but still, this is just wretched. If you couldn't make it sound at least a little bit more pleasant, then put some music over it instead, or just fucking mute it. Sure, that would have sucked too, but at least I would still be able to hear. Ultimately, Dirty Racin' may be somewhat tolerable at times, but not really. It's a pretty big mess across the board, and I honestly don't see how it managed to get any sort of release in the first place. That said, there is one more game on this cart, so maybe it won't be all bad. After all, the other game couldn't possibly be any worse than this, could it? No! No! No, no, no! 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 No, no, no! 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 You cannot possibly be serious. This is the best you could do? Really? Do you have any functioning brain cells left in that vapid empty space you call your head, you stupid fucking doorknobs? Anyone with half a brain and one barely functioning eyeball can see that this doesn't fucking work. Seriously, what more do I actually need to say here? Just look at it. Look at it. Doesn't this pretty much tell you every single thing you need to know? Do you honestly need any more detail to know that this is absolute fucking eye piss? You do? No, you fucking don't! Well, okay, just so the more insane of you don't go even more mental than you already are, let's look a bit more closely at this thing to justify what I'm saying here. Like with Dirty Racin', the intro music is decent enough, but in my opinion, not quite on par with its counterpart. The really depressing thing about the music in this game though, apart from the fact that it again only consists of one, maybe two tracks, is that it was actually made by Tommy Tallarico, the guy behind such awesomeness as this, and this, and of course, this. Yeah, next to stuff like that, this just doesn't seem quite as impressive, does it? Mind you, at least Mr. Tallarico tried. Everyone else involved with this production probably just sat around smelling their own farts. They sure as hell didn't give a toss about the actual game. All of which is pretty evident the moment you actually start playing it. Okay, so the fact that this game only gives you the more standard options of a single practice race or a championship mode, as opposed to the adventure-style setup of its counterpart, is fair enough, but the racing itself is probably the absolute worst I have ever encountered. Again, just look at this thing. It's fucking sickening, and I mean that quite literally. I honestly felt ill after playing this, I kid you not. It's just so painful and sickening to look at that I actually got a headache and felt sick to my stomach after playing for a while. The first problem is just the perspective itself. No, I don't really have a problem with a first-person / driver seat perspective if it's done right and or you still have other options, but in this, it just doesn't work at all. The car itself takes up way too much space on the screen, leaving you with only a fairly small area in which to see the actual track and such. Given that this game is for a handheld machine with a fairly small screen already, I can only imagine how straining this must be to play on an actual Game Boy, because even on a relatively big TV it's painful. On top of that, it can even be quite difficult to discern where the actual track ends as well. Yeah, certain tracks are okay, and you could potentially argue that this has to do with the lack of color or whatever, but this is fucking ridiculous. The entire screen is grey. I know it's supposed to be an off-road racer, but come on, there has to be a way of differentiating the track from the background a bit more than this, right? Also, maybe it's just me, but I have pretty much no idea where my car is in relation to the track or the other cars most of the time. As stated, it could just be my spatial awareness that's completely fucked, but I'm pretty certain it has more to do with the perspective and the lack of a side or rear view of any kind. The game also suffers from the same droning, dull, and somewhat painful audio as in Dirty Racin', but I will admit that it's not quite as bad in this one. Something that is probably the worst thing on this entire cart, though, is this game's fucking insulting frame rate. Yeah, in this day and age, people complain if a game only runs at 30 frames per second, but this game probably doesn't even run at 10. It chugs along at such ridiculous speeds, you'd think you were watching the worst slideshow in the world or something. It's beyond belief. Not only does this make the game look and feel slow and tedious, it also makes it damn near unplayable. Seriously, the game skipping along like this makes it next to impossible to steer away from cars or obstacles without veering off the track itself, and a lot of the time you just end up smashing into them anyway, even if you are mashing the controls like a fucking madman. On top of that, this is also the main reason why this game is so sickening. This chugging and jittering while jumping up and down and side to side in a pathetic attempt to simulate the hills and turns just gives me motion sickness. If the frame rate was even semi-decent, this might not have been such a big deal, but as it is, you better have a paper bag or a bucket or something nearby if you plan on playing this game for more than a few seconds, because it will make you vomit. When all is said and done though, this dual cart must have some redeeming qualities, right? Did you not see the rest of this video? I mean, apart from possibly the music, which only consists of about 2 or 3 tracks combined anyway, I'm seriously struggling to come up with any compliments here. True dirty racing comes close to being tolerable at times, but that lasts about as long as my average wank sessions, which frankly aren't that long. Four-wheel drive is pretty much dead on arrival, and it's not even like these two games feel like they belong on the same cart. Okay, so they were apparently developed by the same company, but apart from that, the only real connection between them is that they're both racing games. Crap racing games. If the goal here was to create the worst compilation game of all time, I think they got pretty damn close. The only ones I can think of that may be worse are Action 52 or the Silent Hill HD collection, but even those might be better than this. There's just nothing of value here at all. No reason whatsoever why anyone should pick this up. Race Days is simply complete and utter shit. All in all, this 2-for-1 deal gives you about the same experience as getting your head kicked in while being force-fed a bottle of Ipecac. Your head is killing you, and sooner or later you'll lose your lunch. This is probably one of the cheapest games I have ever bought, and I can clearly see why. There was just no thought or imagination of any kind put into any part of this, and it's left me feeling so sick that I don't know if I'll ever be able to play another racing game again. If I do, it would have to be something a bit different. Something fairly unique. Something like...
Let the bassline get ya. Let the bassline get ya. Let the bassline get ya. 300 pounds of pressure. £300 of pressure.
Yeah, that might work.